Retro.
Hi, this is Vanessa Marshall, voice of Hera and Rook Cast, and you're listening to Dennis and Jay on Podcast Stardust. Their behavior is continually unexpected.
Welcome to Podcast Stardust. This is the fully armed and operational podcast dedicated to Star Wars news, reviews, and discussion. I'm Dennis Keithley.
And I'm Jay Krebs.
And this show will feature the latest entry in our Revenge of the Sith series as we celebrate the movie's 20th anniversary. But before we go to Mustafar and dive into all that, Jay will remind everybody where we can be found on social media.
Yes, we are very conveniently found on Facebook and Instagram at Podcast Stardust.
All right, the digital line. The signal's boosted to maximum output. The shield is down. We are now broadcasting to the galaxy. So this is part 8 of our Revenge of the Sith series. We are firmly in the middle of Act 3, or probably at the beginning of Act 3, warming things up here. And we got another great episode here in store. Yeah, so we got a good guest. Jay, let's go ahead and dive right on into it.
All right.
So it is our great pleasure to welcome back to Podcast Stardust Dan Zehr from Coffee with Kenobi. Dan, you really need no introduction. I think this is the 7th, maybe 8th time you've been on the show, and everyone knows you from your work on Coffee with Kenobi, which has been around since the dawn of podcasting, as far as I know. But welcome back. We're thrilled to have you. How are you doing?
I'm doing fabulous, and thank you so much, Dennis and Jay. It is great to chat with you both. I tell you, this is like appointment podcasting for me. I love joining you to do these recaps, and the little chatting before and after is always a pleasure too. Can't wait to see you guys at Celebration. Gosh,
indeed,
whenever that is. Yeah.
Oh yes, looking forward to that for sure.
They just need to tell us when the tickets go on sale, and I am ready. So, well, Jay, you want to go ahead and kick everything off with our questions for Dan?
Yeah, I would love to. All right, Dan. So our first question is, what was your first experience seeing Revenge of the Sith? What do you remember about it? How old were you? Any life experiences? Anything special going on at the time? Or just anything about the experience in general that you remember?
So let's see. I was born in 1972. I saw it opening night. So what does that make me? 32, probably? 32? Yeah. I was 32 when it came out. And I remember it vividly because I got as many people as I could. It was when I first started doing some work with youth ministry. So there was a lot of kids there that I knew as well. And I was absolutely transfixed from the beginning, especially with war, the opening thing in the opening crawl. And I loved it. I was mesmerized by it. I saw it multiple times in the theater. It took everybody I knew to see it. That was also the summer right before I left my job in insurance to become a teacher, and I started student teaching. So it was just like the perfect bridge for me because at that point I was very much all over the StarWars.com message boards and engaged with that so much, to my own little blog there, all this kind of stuff. And then it was done. I bought the toys, went and saw the movie multiple times. And then my very first lesson was I incorporated Revenge of the Sith into Hamlet. And it was like this perfect storm of all these great transitional moments. The end of Star Wars at the time and the beginning of my new career as an educator. And I never looked back.
Nice. I love that tie-in too, especially you were in transition at the time. So it's a very cool memory.
Anakin went from good to bad, and I went from a bad, unhappy place to the best time of my life.
There you go.
I was also transitioning out of insurance around then as well.
No kidding. I don't think I knew that.
Yeah. I worked for an auto insurance company for a year, and then I was in life insurance for 4 years. Yeah, something around there. But then I went to law school during that time. Yeah. All right. What was your favorite scene from Revenge of the Sith?
My favorite scene from Revenge of the Sith is when the music changes and Anakin and Padmé are sitting in that trellis, whatever, I don't know. And they're talking, and then he confronts Mace Windu, and then Mace says, "Hey, you better, if this is true, you'll have regained my trust." And then he goes, and then he ends up, of course, is this a spoiler? Ends up transforming into Darth Vader because of what happens in Palpatine's chambers with Mace Windu. I think all the way to the end, so that entire thing is perfection. And I know it's not one scene, but to me, that's the moment where when I show my students this section is the most rewarding for me. And no matter how many times I see that movie, every time kids who have never seen it react to it and just are aghast at what is happening, it's just fantastic.
That's good.
No,
And
I
no
agree.
spoilers necessary because we covered most of that in the last episode that we did in the
Sure.
series. So, all right. Jay, you want to go ahead and finish off
That's
the
a great
questions?
one. Absolutely. So, Dan, who would you say your favorite character is in Revenge of the Sith, and why?
It's Anakin. It's Anakin because I've said this for so long, but I think Anakin Skywalker is truly the most nuanced and complex character. I've never really bought that his transition and fall from grace wasn't authentic. I think it's all right there. The text presents it all. And it's just so powerful and conflicted that, the road to evil is paved with good intentions, as we know. And he is a living example that he's very Shakespearean in this film, as a tragic hero that comes from a place of predominance and respect and authority. He has one fatal flaw, and that flaw dooms him. And he realizes just at the very end that he could have made different choices, but he's too engrossed into the transaction of evil. And then look out, Galaxy. And it's just so beautifully done. He's horribly lost at that point, but boy, oh boy, does it tug at your heartstrings and your emotions.
Well
Indeed.
put. Yeah, I think you I think you captured the essence of his fall perfectly there. So,
Well, thank you.
all right, let's get on with the segment then. And we are picking up at 1 hour, 23 minutes and 31 seconds. We're going to run to about 1 hour, 33 minutes and 38 seconds. Seldom that I get that close to a perfect 10-minute segment, but here we are. So this picks up with Order 66 is ongoing. We got the clones versus the Jedi at the Jedi Temple. And then Anakin enters the Jedi Council chamber to find a number of children hiding behind the council seats there. And one little blonde-haired boy pops up and says, Master Skywalker, there's too many of them. What are we going to do? And Anakin then ignites his lightsaber. So if you had any doubt about Anakin's fall, I think this kind of eliminates any of those doubts here. But Dan, when you saw this scene, how did it speak to you? What did it say to you about Anakin and what was going on with Order 66?
It's hard for me to remember exactly, of course, but I know it was something like this because it's very similar to how I feel now. That is probably the most shocking moment in the history of Star Wars. It's because there's a complete, it's murder. It's he's killing children, and there's no turning back from that. Like, to be that far gone and that lost, you've lost your mind. You've lost your mind. As an English teacher, though, that moment to me, and George has talked about this a little bit, that moment to me is, I would like to think of it as not literal, but a metaphorical example of him killing his innocence, destroying all good parts of self, the most purest part of himself being that sweet little boy on Tatooine. And now he kills any aspect of that, literally and figuratively. And it's just devastating. And that's the scene that when Mason was little, I made him close his eyes. And it wasn't until he was older, he's like, "Oh, Dad." I'm like, "I know. I know. You can't explain it away. You really can't."
Mm-hmm. And Jay, what
No,
do
I
you
like
think?
that analysis. Well, first of all, I like the analogy of Anakin killing his innocence because that's true. I mean, in every sense of the word. And I know watching this the first time, you sit there and you go, wait, no, 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 this can't be happening. You want to pinch yourself and jump into the screen and say, no, you can't do this. What are you doing? But then it's that, to borrow the phrase necessary evil, I guess you could say, that puts him over the edge. One thing that I always wondered about though was that when he goes in there, there's that little tear that you can kind of see right on the edge of his cheek, but his eyes are still blue. And we know that later on he has the Sith eyes, but in this instance they're still clear and they're still blue. But I think to your point, Dan, that's because until he ignites that lightsaber and carries out this horrible deed, he still has that little glimpse of innocence. So I really appreciate that you pointed that out because I hadn't thought of that necessarily in that way before.
That's a good observation too. I like what you both had to say there because you're right, Jay. And building off what Dan just said, that he walks in there, and we haven't seen him exactly slaughter any Jedi yet. But when he gets in there, there's no doubt as to what he's doing here. And then, of course, once he's dispatched of the Separatist Council later, he is crying on that overlook, looking the lava there. I will always remember this scene from the first time I saw it in the theaters. My oldest was not quite one yet at the time.
Oh gosh.
And my wife and I had a babysitter, so we went and saw this movie, and my wife was holding my hand, and Anakin walks in there, and that lightsaber gets lit, and they flash away. She picked up and slammed my hand down so hard in that moment. She was so upset and disgusted with Anakin in the moment. And yeah, to me, that always speaks about the impact of that scene especially for Star Wars fans in that moment. So,
and I do remember thinking, now that you mentioned that, no one slammed my hand per se, but I do remember thinking, oh yeah, I wanted them to show how evil Vader is, and be careful what you wish for. They did not pull any punches. George Lucas was quite insistent in showing how evil this is when you side with the devil, who is Palpatine, and it's unflinchingly brutal and horrific. And it's almost like the lightsaber, when it turns on, it seems louder. I don't know if that's the case, if Ben Burtt did the mix like that, but it sure felt that way.
Well, especially since you get that scene like almost from the perspective of the lightsaber. It's shot, the camera's right behind the saber with Anakin's hand in that moment. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he did it that way.
And I think the decision is right not to show it. And later we get to see it through the holograms, which I know is not in this section of what we're talking about. But I think that was the right call artistically, because I think if they did show it, I think this wouldn't be a PG-13 movie.
Oh no, definitely not.
No, that's a good point. Have you guys seen the video that's been circulating of the little boy that is now grown up, and he talks about his experiences and getting cast for this? Have you both seen
No,
that?
I knew it was there, but I just haven't. What is it like?
Yeah, it's so cool. Well, he talks about how he got the job, and of course, he said it's like partially nepotism, but the part where Anakin turns on his lightsaber, they did a couple of takes of it, but what you don't see is that Hayden Christensen, as soon as he goes to turn it on, he like yells, he goes, "Ah!" So that little boy's reaction was authentic.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
so he actually yelled when he did it, and so that was I just think that's a cool little Easter
Oh,
egg.
that's kind of creepy, but it
Right.
obviously had to be
Yeah.
done to create that realistic jolt.
Right.
Eek. Yes.
Yeah. All right. So moving on, we next see Padmé's apartment, and she is looking at the Jedi Temple, and you can see that it's burning in the distance. And then C-3PO wanders up and reports that he's heard from the Jedi Temple, or he's heard from Chancellor Palpatine's office, that Anakin did in fact return to the Jedi Temple. And then he asks if there's anything he can do for her, and she says no, that'll be all. And then Padmé breaks into tears. So I guess my question in here is Padmé just afraid that something has happened to Anakin, or is she afraid that he's done something that caused all of this after hearing that he in fact had returned to the temple? Or do we even have enough information to know? But what do you think, Dan?
I think when you are close with someone, when you're married to someone, there's just sort of an unspoken connection that you have. And I'm not saying she's psychic or is using the Force, because I don't think she is. But what I do think is that everything is falling apart. When Anakin left, things were weird, and she could tell that something was wrong. And I think she's just drastically upset. She knows Anakin's a part of it. I think she's just scared for his life and scared of what is going on. But I don't think she has a sense at that point that he's done an atrocity. One thing I do like about that scene, and this is just kind of related to something I've been working on, is when she's looking out the window at the Jedi Temple in flames, you see that same perspective from a different angle when Barriss Offee is looking out the temple from Tales of the Empire at the beginning of her arc, and that's kind of cool.
It's very cool. I always love getting all those different points of view from all of the stuff that we've gotten since. It's so cool.
Jay, do you have any other thoughts on that scene?
I just think she was worried, honestly. There may have been some thought that, oh gosh, like what has Anakin gotten himself mixed up in? Because we know Anakin gets himself mixed up in a lot of things.
That rascal.
But yeah, but I think she was more just worried in general than anything else because, as you said, Dan, everything's been falling apart and everything is just kind of culminating into this very, it's the unknown, with Palpatine and everything going on and. But what did you think, Dennis?
Well, I have a couple different minds of this. Right before Anakin goes to Palpatine's office to kind of confront everything that's going on there, he knows when to confront Palpatine. There is that scene where we have Anakin in the Jedi Council chamber, and then Padmé's in her apartment. It keeps going back and forth, and you kind of get this idea that there's some sort of connection with them. And then Anakin, speaking of tears, he has that tear rolls down his face, and you hear the Palpatine say, it's only through me that you can save the one you love or save Padmé's life. I can't remember exactly how it goes. And I feel like there's something being told to us as the audience that there's a connection between them, and they kind of have an idea of what the other is going through in that moment. And then Anakin gets up and leaves. And then now here, and we've just seen this atrocity that Anakin commits or it's hinted at, we don't see it on screen. We then get Padmé reacting to that. She's seeing the aftermath of the attack there. Does she know for certain that Anakin has murdered younglings? Maybe not. Is there something in the back of her mind saying this could be really bad for him beyond just his life could be in danger? I suspect so. So
agreed, but I also agree there's no chance that she thinks that. Otherwise, when her heart is breaking at the end on Mustafar, that wouldn't hit the same way.
Indeed. All right. So after this, we get a key scene with Bail Organa arriving at the Jedi Temple. He confronts the clones there about what is going on. They tell him he needs to leave, that there's been a rebellion. And then a Jedi attacks the clones that are there, who happen to be played by George Lucas's son. And then the clones overwhelm him and he goes down. Bail lets out a no, and then he flees from the scene. Jay, when I saw this today, you and I have brought up an awful lot in recent episodes how much all of Star Wars has been impacted lately for us by Reign of Empire, Mask of Fear. And this was another scene for me just simply because of, Bail was seeking so much justice for the Jedi. And I couldn't help felt like this had to be some sort of an influence for Alexander Freed when he wrote that novel. But what did you think?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because you could just see and feel the desperation that Bail was going through at that point in time and just the disbelief. Because, I mean, he had been pretty close proximity with clones in terms of just understanding what their role and purpose was and everything about what the Jedi were doing to try to preserve justice in the galaxy, both far and wide, all over the galaxy. And then to witness such, again, to a youngling, essentially, a young Padawan, and this happening. And I absolutely love how he gets into his speeder, and I don't know if that was scripted or not, but I mean, he was scrambling to get in, so much so that he basically missed the driver's seat and was just sort of trying to scramble for the controls and grab the controls just out of desperation to get out of there. So I don't know if that was kind of a blooper that they left in. He wasn't super smooth about getting into his driver's seat, but I think that was also the point, that it was such a horrific situation that he was literally like beside himself trying to get out of there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And isn't it interesting too? And I just thought about this. This entire sequence is features children dying, being not just dying, which is horribly tragic in its own way, but being murdered by faceless. In this instance, it's by the clones who are supposed to be their allies and friends. But all of these kids are getting killed because of their potential, because of what they represent to Palpatine, which is someone who's an independent, free thinker who's trying to unite with the good aspects of the positive nature of the Force. And as a result, the galaxy, and the fact that that has to be quenched because evil can't take that, is just it's just a really powerful example of the trauma that happens when you breed hatred, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just it really stands out here. And even like the score is weeping. You got these wonderful choral examples, from John Williams' score, and it just adds to the heaviness. Like, and I'm sorry for bringing it up again, but when I watch it with my students, when we do certain things with this movie, boy, oh boy, especially again, the students who are not expecting this, it's just like it's relentless. It's just completely opposite of a New Hope concept. It's really just takes it out of you.
Mm-hmm. It
Very
truly
much
does.
so. Very much so. So after this, we get a brief shot of Obi-Wan on Utapau, and he is emerging from the water after having been blasted into there from the back of his fractal after Commander Cody was issued Order 66. It's such a brief scene. I don't want to really pause to spend much time on that, but that's immediately followed up with Yoda on Kashyyyk. First off, there's some clones that are riding around on AT-RTs looking for him, and they find some Wookiees that have been shot down, and they just more dead Wookiees, and they just kind of march off, highlighting the faceless, emotionless, robotic nature of the clones in this moment. But then we have Yoda saying his goodbyes to Tarful and Chewbacca after he arrives at his ship. And then he takes off after he tells them he's going to miss them. But Dan, Yoda's relationship with the Wookiees here and the appearance of Chewbacca, what does what stands out to you about that?
I mean, on the one hand, it's pretty cool that these two iconic characters from the Star Wars saga share some screen time together. And it's essentially like a piece of world building too. The fact that the most diminutive hero in Star Wars is with the tallest is kind of a fun juxtaposition. But ultimately, it's like an action figure moment. And when he says, "I will miss you," I thought, I don't ever hear Yoda say that to anyone, really. Does he?
Mm-hmm.
Does he ever tell anyone he misses them?
No, he tells them the opposite earlier in
In fact,
the
he says,
movie.
"Yeah, don't miss them." Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And so I don't know, maybe that's to show us the emotion is hitting him. And if it hits Yoda, then it's a lot. But we already knew that because kids were killed.
Yeah.
So I don't have a critique of it. It sounds like I am, but ultimately it's just a transitional scene that helps Yoda get off the planet.
Indeed. Jay, do you have anything to add?
Well, just because of the High Republic, now getting some of the background on Kashyyyk, which I won't go into for those who have not finished the High Republic just yet. We had wondered if maybe that's where some of the good relations with the Wookiees I have kind of came from originally.
Hmm.
And, the fact that you pointed out, Dan, that he says he will miss them, I hadn't thought of that. I mean, that's obviously an attachment thing. And, as much as Yoda's against attachments, yet he is very much attached to at least the idea of the camaraderie of these Wookiees and everything that they represent. One thing that I wondered about, though, was the ship that was there. Is that a type of escape pod, or because they uncover this ship being hidden from all of these branches and all of this, and it kind of gives me the impression that it had been there a very long time, that Yoda had been to Kashyyyk before, and this was left for him on a separate mission or on a separate time. Because when would they have had time to hide it? I guess is what I always wondered. And now with everything else that we've gotten since then, it makes me wonder that even more. But do either of you have any thoughts on that?
That's an interesting observation. I hadn't thought about maybe even from a prior mission, although it was a little odd that when the Jedi have the clone army at their disposal, an entire fleet of ships, that might be what he took to Kashyyyk in the first place, and that the Wookiees would have the foresight to hide that ship when no one even knew that Order 66 was coming. So I don't know. Maybe it was
like,
yeah.
let's say maybe it's like standard protocol to hide one ship for the. I mean, he is the Grand Master, the only one left. I don't know.
Or
It's a very cozy little. You know, it's like you got to need a shoehorn to get in there.
or maybe it was just left over from something else in Tarful.
Oh, that could be.
Yeah, in Tarful, they needed an escape, so they couldn't go back to whatever ship that Yoda arrived on because the clones are all looking for him. So, and there was a Jedi battle cruiser in the background there on Kashyyyk, so you can't go back there. So maybe this was just an alternate way of getting off the planet that they came up with.
Yeah, like an escape pod built in because clearly no Wookiees fitting in that thing.
Right.
No. Maybe Yaddle brought it. I don't know if she's ever been to Kashyyyk. So,
Wow.
All right. So back on Coruscant, Bail's ship takes off from the Senate offices, and he mentions that he is hoping to find other Jedi before they wander into this massacre. We can revisit Bail and that in just a bit. But then back on Utapau, the clones are still looking for Obi-Wan Kenobi, and he steals General Grievous's ship and sends out a call for help, which is immediately answered by Bail Organa, who says he's already rescued Master Yoda, so he wasted no time there. And then Bail reports that it appears that the clones have turned on the Jedi everywhere, that this has been going on all over the galaxy. Other than being a good moment to kind of move the plot forward, is there anything else that stands out to either one of you about these two brief scenes?
It's the only moment of respite to temporarily, briefly exhale, though not with a full breath, because finally here's some good news.
Yeah,
because there's pretty much a cavalcade, an onslaught, an avalanche of bad things happening. So it's a very brief moment for the audience to catch their breath before they dive into what's going to be quite a powerful climax.
Mm-hmm. Jay, you have anything to add?
I just remember thinking to myself that this was a very similar feeling to when the 9/11 attacks happened, that we were so stunned by everything, and there was so much uncertainty, and there was so much unbelievable things happening, and it has that very same sorts of feeling to it, and in the desperation again that's there when all of this is happening, and just not knowing where to go, who to trust, what to do. But again, Bail stepping up to at least try to be a lighthouse for the Jedi.
I like that. A lighthouse. That's great.
Me too. I hadn't thought of it that way, but that makes a lot of sense. So back on Coruscant, we see Padmé's apartment, and Anakin arrives, and 3PO immediately wanders down the platform to talk to R2-D2. Anakin tells her that he came back to check on her and the baby. And when she asks him what's happened, his response is that the Jedi have tried to overthrow the Republic. And Padmé says that she can't believe that. And Anakin says, well, I saw Master Windu attempt to assassinate the Chancellor myself. And when Padmé asks, well, what are you going to do? And he says he's not going to betray the Republic, that he is going to, his loyalties lie with the Chancellor, the Senate, and you. And then I'm summarizing a lot because there's so much to unpack here. But Padmé asks about Obi-Wan, and Anakin says he doesn't know that many Jedi have been killed. He can only hope that Obi-Wan has decided to remain loyal to the Chancellor as well. And Padmé confesses that she's afraid about this. Anakin says to have faith. The Chancellor is given a mission. He's going to see the Separatist leadership on Mustafar, and he's going to put an end to this war. 3PO says goodbye to R2, and then 3PO offers to help Padmé, and she doesn't need anything at the moment, and she breaks into tears again. So this is just one of those scenes where Anakin's done all these things in the name of saving the one he loves, saving Padme. But then he hides behind a whole bunch of half-truths when he's explained to her what happened. That's my take on it. Dan, what do you think about what Anakin is telling Padme in this moment? And how much of this does she believe? I mean, she immediately, right off the bat, says that she can't believe that the Jedi would have tried to overthrow the Republic here. So have things changed? Is she overwhelmed? What do you think's going on?
I think she's a mature person who is also, carrying a child and has a different perspective on life, and she's seen a lot of things. And this information is very hard to accept. And she knows that Anakin, for all of his strengths, he's just one particular observer and one reporter. He's clearly got a bias towards the Chancellor or towards Palpatine. Surely Padme has noticed that before. But I've never seen this part as a half-truth. I think Anakin is saying what happened. He did see when you try to assassinate the Palpatine. At one point, he was going to. I think he would have done it. I really do.
Mhm.
That's why we're supposed to believe that he's got some sort of not a dark passenger like Dexter, but he's got that sense, that there's a part of him that might take it across the line, although we never really see it until he's pushed in this moment. And everything he's telling, the way he's delivering lines, I think Hayden Christensen is terrific in this sequence. I think this is what he wants to believe. When you've done the terrible things that he has done and you're still a good person way, way, way deep down inside, you got to talk into yourself into stuff to make yourself believe it, because he doesn't believe what he's saying. And I think Hayden Christensen's performance very much shows us that. So the more he says things like this and goes with it, the better. And I love this, how he handles the Obi-Wan thing. I think this is good script writing and storytelling by George Lucas, because they assume the audience knows about the confrontation. Everybody's known for years and years, for decades, that these two are going to fight on a volcano planet. Everyone has known that. That's been kind of in George's mind since A New Hope. But the fact that he doesn't know builds that anticipation for us. Again, this really is, and I'm not someone who's just going to be hyperbolic about Star Wars, even though I love it. It has several flaws, as do most stories, except for Hamilton. But this really is setting up an integral confrontation that's a fulcrum to the galaxy, to borrow a phrase that Jay used on Coffee with Kenobi recently. And it tells us that the audience is intelligent, and they know that there has to be a suspension of what is going to happen, because you want to give the audience hope, even though they know it's not. This is why it's Shakespearean. You know what the end is. At the beginning of Romeo and Juliet, he tells you in like line 8, a pair of star-crossed lovers do with their parents' death, take their lives. Boom. You know it's going to happen, because you want it desperately to not be what you know it's going to be. That increases the drama, the tension, and the beauty of the story itself. I did not think I was going to babble that long. I apologize.
No, that's fantastic. That's great.
It was fantastic.
Yeah. Okay. So if it's not a half-truth, then I'll paraphrase a semi-recent pop culture reference from Sabrina Carpenter. He told her the truth minus 5%. Windu didn't go to Palpatine's office to overthrow the Republic. He went there to arrest a Sith Lord. And the idea was that they were going to then turn everything over to the Senate to elect a new chancellor. And that's fantastic. But him comes back and he says they tried to overthrow the Republic. That's not what Windu and the Jedi went there to do. And the idea that he went to assassinate the chancellor, yes, that's ended up what Windu was going to do, because he just saw 3 of the Jedi Masters get killed and they were up against it. But again, I don't believe that was ever Windu's original intent in the entire thing here. But
No.
Anakin is bought into this whole thing. After he agreed to become the apprentice, it's like, when Palpatine is saying, since how's he say it? I have to believe that you're the only one that's not bought into this Jedi plot. They came up with a story there on the spot, and now Anakin is telling Padme, I think, what she needs to hear, or what he hopes that she wants to hear out of all of this. And so, yeah, I mean, factually, what he says, a lot of it is true, but that's like classic Sith, right? I mean, there's a kernel of truth in all of everything they say. They just withhold enough of it in order to bend the galaxy and everything else to their will. That's my take. Jay, you've heard Dan, you've heard me. What do you think about this?
Well, it's interesting because when Anakin says to Padme he will not betray the Republic, that his loyalties lie with the Chancellor, yada, yada, yada. And then he said that he, knows that he witnessed Mace Windu tried to assassinate the Chancellor himself. So the Chancellor is not the Republic, even though he thinks he is. And I am the Senate, kind of thing. So he is one man, an instrumental man, obviously, but realistically, one assassination does not the fall of the Republic make. And that's why I think Padme says, I can't believe that, because she knows that there's a lot more cogs in the wheel, even though Palpatine is a very major cog in that wheel. And just everything that she has witnessed up to that point makes her, obviously not want to believe that. However, seeing the Jedi Temple on fire obviously throws that little bit, to the wind, because the fact that she knows something is amiss, something is very, very, very wrong. But how different is Anakin in this moment? He's very calm. He's almost numb. He's very robotic. He's, this is what's happening, and my loyalties lie with the Chancellor, the Senate, and with you. And it's almost like he's rehearsed this on the way. Contrast that with his assassination / mutilization of the Sand People, the Tusken Raiders, and what he told Padme after that. I killed them all, not just the men, but the women and the children too. And he was losing it at that time. Now he is completely in the opposite direction. And to me, that's what's so chilling about this. And to your point, Dan, the way that Hayden Christensen delivers this is so masterful.
It's great. He's also good at singing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game," which we saw recently at Wrigley Field.
It kills me he did that for the Cubs as a Cardinals fan, but whatever.
Well, we can forgive your one flaw, Dennis.
66.
I know.
I love
Wasn't that great?
66. That was great.
So many people text me like, "Did you see the number on his jersey?" I said, "Oh yeah. That's pretty great touch."
Yeah, I think the thing that stands out to me this is, to back up the point that you were making, Jay, and what you were saying, Dan, is that right when he slaughtered the Tuscans, it was he tells Padme elsewhere, I don't feel like I'm the Jedi I should be. I want more, and I know I shouldn't in this case. But now he's bought in to all of this. He's bought into the Sith plan. Here, there's no longer any hesitation on this. He's doing what he needs to do, or he thinks he needs to do, in order to save Padme's life in this situation. He's going along with the bigger lie here in this. And it is tragic. It is so sad, because when he so casually talks about not knowing what's happened to Obi-Wan, but we can only hope that he's going to remain loyal to the Chancellor here. As you put, Dan, we all know he's not going to. And the other thing here is that Padme's been suspicious of Palpatine and his motives for a while. I mean, it got cut from this movie, but she helped organize, what is it? The
Delegate of 2000.
Thank you. The delegation of 2000. And,
Yes.
and that's come up here, and she's asked Anakin to talk to Palpatine about ending this war and letting diplomacy resume. And so I feel, Anakin probably had to come back and try and say something to make Palpatine look sympathetic and almost like a victim in all of this, to justify throwing in with him in this regard.
I love that, and I think both with this and the Tuscan scene that you mentioned, Jay, I think in both instances he feels bad, but he can't take it back, and he's conflicted because part of him doesn't want to take it back, but he still, the human side of him, feels terrible for what he did, because there is still that little boy in there that does not want to hurt like this and does not want to make people hurt. But he can't. Now he's on that slope, and his shoes are full of butter, and he can't climb up. It's too late. I don't know why I picked butter as the the surface of his feet, but it just seemed funny. I had to lighten the mood a
You
little.
know
Come
what?
on.
I was going to say that is a culinary term I can
See?
definitely get on board with. There you go.
See, you
Good
got to know
point.
your audience.
All kinds of colorful
Love
references and
it.
analogies in this episode. We're batting 1,000. So,
There you go.
okay. Well, we next see the Tantive 4, and Obi-Wan has arrived. He meets with Yoda and Bail Organa. They've not heard from any other Jedi, highlighting how stark and dire everything is in this moment. Yoda then says that they've received a coded retreat message from the temple. All Jedi are requested to return. And then Obi-Wan says they got to go back and dismantle this signal, to which Yoda agrees. Again, another opportunity for the movie to kind of catch us up with where the plot's going to go here. The one thing that just stood out to me is I recently reread A New Dawn by John Jackson Miller, and the very beginning of that book is Kanan, then at the time known as Caleb Doom, giving Obi-Wan the Kenobi about how you could reprogram this message to tell the Jedi to stay away, which is what he's going to do here in a moment.
Yep.
But anything else from this scene stand out to either one of you?
Oh, I got a lot to say about this. Believe it or not, this is the scene. This is this line of Yoda's. I don't remember exactly how it says it, but he says it like in a surprise, like, "Oh, you think we should turn off this signal?" Like, no poop, Yoda? No kidding? Is that a big insight? This is the most frustrating part of the whole movie for me. Like, Yoda is smarter than everybody. He's more wise than everybody, and he's acting surprised. Oh, everyone is coming back to the temple, and they're going to be killed? Oh, what a good idea. Maybe we should shut that off. This part drives me insane. What? It just drives me crazy. Like when you watch now, I think I've ruined it for everyone. You're welcome, listeners. But seriously, it's like the way, watch it again, the way he's like, turn off the communication. We should like, doy. Sorry, it just drives me crazy. I hang out a lot with somebody's in junior high, so you can tell.
No, I love that because I hadn't really thought about it in that way before, but it's almost like, Yoda is of that, older generation that doesn't completely understand technology, but as we liken that to, our own earthen experiences. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I never thought of it that way before.
That's so frustrating.
Now I'm never gonna watch it any other way.
Yeah. You guys have to text me when you see it again. Like, oh yeah.
Thanks, Dan.
Yoda's senior moment here coming up here. All right.
Yeah.
Well, we next get our first look at Mustafar. And we get to see some Mustafarans on lava fleas, various droids gathering some molten ore, and other Mustafarans on those floating platforms pulling stuff out of the lava flow. And there is a message from Darth Sidious to Viceroy Gunray saying that Darth Vader is soon going to arrive and take care of them. There's a lot of symbolism that comes with Mustafar, and I can't think of anyone better to ask about this than Mr. Zehr. So, Dan, when it comes to Mustafar, and we get another brief scene here, but I couldn't let this episode end without asking you about your thoughts on Mustafar and what it means.
I love this question. In classic, well, I guess I don't know. But in older literature, especially early American literature, transcendentalism and different things of that nature and the environment, the architecture, tell the story of the character's emotions. Edgar Allan Poe is really good at this. In The Fall of the House of Usher, it's about this house falling apart and the end of this family lineage, and ultimately it leads to murder and insanity. And then you look at this, and Mustafar is fiery. It's volatile. It's warm. It's hot. It's dangerous. And the lava is not calm. It's explosive. It's jumping around the seams, almost like it's angry or upset at itself. And this is a manifestation of Anakin Skywalker's anxiety, his anger, his unsettled nature at what he has done and what he's about to do. I still think in this moment, even though he's done all the things he's done, he's not convinced it's right, but it's too late. He doesn't think he can change it. And that's what evil wants you to do. It wants you to think you can't change your mind. You can't be forgiven. You can't make a different choice. And Mustafar is showcasing that. It's so much so that when he lands and he makes R2 stay behind, I love that scene because that, again, R2D2, very childlike, someone that has been with Anakin Skywalker since he was, 8, 9, 10 years old. So the good parts that might record me, that reminds me of being a kid, I got to leave that behind. I'm going to walk through this fiery stuff because I'm on this path, and it does remind me of Edgar Allan Poe, and it's pretty cool.
I like it. Jay, what do you think?
That's so great. Well, I was so looking forward to your interpretation of Mustafar, Dan, because I know how symbolism is so important to you and everything. And I was thinking about when I was recently on Coffee with Kenobi and we were talking about water and being, a very rebirth kind of thing too. And so as I was watching this in preparation, I thought about the fact that what is the contrast to Mustafar been for Anakin this whole time? If you notice, and of course I'm all about the costumes, but if you notice, Padme is wearing some shade of blue, purple, almost every single scene that she's with him. And that to me is like the water. That's the opposite of Mustafar. That is the cooling aspect for him. So, I don't know exactly what kind of symbolism you can pull out of that necessarily, but just the contrast that, and that hit me today. I was like, oh my gosh, Padme's wearing blue or some sort of hue of blue in almost every single scene that she's with Anakin in this movie.
That's neat. She's the embodiment of life, of change, of embracing, becoming a new self. And ironically, even though it's not the scene, Anakin will later be baptized, but by fire, and it will almost kill him. And I think you can unpack a lot there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Mustafar is his the culmination of his descent.
Yeah, I should have come on for the end of the movie. Darn it.
Well, I had to make sure you got on, and we have a way of running out of segments when we do these movies, so I had to get you.
That's
on,
all right.
sure
I slipped it in.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. Yeah, no, it's that's fantastic, and not disappointed at all. This is why we have you around, Dan.
Thank you.
But one last section to talk about here is kind of sandwiched by the two Mustafar scenes, and that is the return to Coruscant. They are on the Tantive 4, and as they approach, Masameda contacts Bail Organa and lets him know that the Chancellor has requested his presence at a special session of Congress. Bail says he's going to be there, and then he asks the Jedi if this could be a trap, and Obi-Wan's response to that is not likely because the Emperor can't maintain control of the thousands of star systems without keeping the Senate intact, which directly foreshadows what happens in A New Hope. So,
and or season 2.
Indeed. Right. But any thoughts on that before we wrap everything up?
I actually have one. Did either of you ever wonder if those lines should have been flip-flopped? Because Bail has been a senator for how long? And he should kind of know how the Senate works, and that have that almost like innate understanding that this wouldn't be a trap. You almost wonder if Obi-Wan should have been the one to say, do you think it's a trap? Any thoughts on that?
I think that's a cool interpretation. I hadn't thought of it that way. I just like it because it's sort of like from that moment on, because of what he has seen and because he's a smart man anyway, he knows from this point forward, I am wearing a costume of being a senator. We're playing dress up because really nothing's going to happen. But I have to stay in this to see what's going on, right? I have to play this game. I have to be under disguise and be even more of a spy than I was before because he needs me. I have to go into the lion's den wearing my steak sandwich underpants. What? So that because I know that I'm going to be in a dangerous place, but I'm going to be safe temporarily because he needs us.
My on-the-spot response to this is that perhaps Bail is kind of under the influence of the conversation the Jedi just had, which is there is this beacon calling Jedi back to Coruscant, and they've got to go there and disarm it. So is Masameda's invitation something similar for the senators, which is, everyone's being called back. All the enemies to the Chancellor are being called back to one place to be dealt with one way or the other. And so perhaps that's his thought, that if the Chancellor is so bold to take out the Jedi across the galaxy, then what's to stop him from acting against the senators, who don't really pose quite the same threat?
Good point. Bold move, Cotton.
I like that.
All right. Well, that brings us to the end of the segment. And as usual, Dan, you do not disappoint. You bring your A game to Podcast Stardust, and I appreciate that. So thanks again for joining us here. Before you go, you want to remind everybody, as if they need reminding, what is going on with Coffee with Kenobi and where you can be found and what you're up to.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. Well, by the way, 99% of what I said, I thought of because of the conversation with the two of you. So you two are wonderful muses and inspire me, not only on the shows I'm on, but just on Podcast Stardust in general. So thank you for having me. An absolute pleasure. Sincerely, I love it. As far as Coffee with Kenobi, we're finally finishing up talking about Andor. Sometimes I do it week to week, and sometimes I think about other things. Coffee with Kenobi is currently in more of an evergreen place because I want to keep the show relevant regardless of what is coming out. I think that is just sort of a neat direction I want to do. And I'm going to be spotlighting some of the many aspects of Star Wars that we like, not just the mythology and the philosophy of it, but also the people, like the two of you. So at some point, you both may be getting a call to come back on the show and share your Star Wars story. And I'm looking forward to that.
That'll be fun. I'll be checking the mailbox. So, all right.
And also, I will say, if you, oh my gosh, my pleasure. And if you heard my interview with one of the heads of Fanhome, I am honored to write the Build Your Own Darth Vader Star Wars Encyclopedia magazine issues that go in it's going to be over 200,000 words I've written about Star Wars. You're going to have your own Star Wars encyclopedia purely on the dark side of the Force and the evil aspects of the galaxy. It's all, I work with Lucasfilm and Disney on it. It's a very much a labor of love. And when you're done, not only get to have this encyclopedia, but you have a 1/2 scale museum-sized, museum quality Darth Vader with working lights and sounds. It's breathtaking.
That's fantastic.
That is fantastic. Well, congratulations on that. Congratulations on all the work that you've published in the Star Wars realm over the past few years. Of course, we had you on to talk about the Star Wars book a couple of years ago, and that was fantastic. I know you've done a number of things since then that everyone should look for on their bookshelves, or in the bookstore, I should say. And we will continue to look forward to what you have going on Coffee with Kenobi.
Sounds good. I can't wait.
All right. Well, there you have it. That was Dan Zehr from Coffee with Kenobi, always bringing his A game, one of our frequent contributors every year on the show. And it's always good talking to Dan.
Oh, yeah. It always brings such wonderful insights. I love how that you use A game since he's a teacher. I think he would definitely appreciate that.
Definitely so. So, yeah. And like I said earlier, you all should be familiar with him. His podcast has launched another 1,000 podcasts from his listeners, and in a way, ours as well. So, make sure you go check out everything he's doing over at Coffee with Kenobi, and then pick up one of his books. Just go Google his name on Amazon. You'll find everything that he's been writing and doing.
I was gonna say, we do have some new listeners out there, though, too. So even though they may be longtime Star Wars fans, if they're new podcast fans, that's definitely one you want to check out.
Indeed. All right. Well, then, that will do it for this episode of Podcast Stardust and this entry in our Revenge of the Sith ongoing series. Thank you all for joining us, and we hope you've enjoyed it. And if you haven't done so already, we'd really appreciate it if you'd go ahead and hit that subscribe button for the podcast on your podcatcher of choice. And then an even bigger favor would be if you could go ahead and rate and review the show on whatever podcatcher that you're using that supports such things. And if you want to find the entire back catalog of shows, all previous 930 episodes, one of the best places you can do that is over at retrozap.com, which is home to the RetroZap Podcast Network, which includes other great shows, including Enjoy Stuff, Love, Death, and Robots Plus, Superhero Suite, and Agent Shield Case Files. Those are some of the more active shows over there on the network right now. Jay, you want to go ahead and remind everybody where we can be found on social media?
Absolutely. Always my pleasure. We are very easily found on Facebook and Instagram at Podcast Stardust. And we have tons of other ways that you can connect with us and geek out about Star Wars. And one of those is all of our Pinterest boards. And we also have our two YouTube outlets. So we have the traditional YouTube as well as YouTube music. No videos, just, static pictures that Dennis picks out, but you can listen to them. And it does have all of our back catalog of shows, and you can subscribe. You can share that out with your friends, and that also supports interactions too. So we'd love to hear your thoughts on this episode of Revenge of the Sith breakdown and any others that you've listened to in the past. And then we also have our TeePublic store where you can find 7 different podcast show logo designs available on everything from t-shirts and sweatshirts to home goods, coffee mugs, and everything in between. And the link to that is in our show notes.
Okay, upcoming on the show. On Friday, we're getting into the latest Star Wars news. And then on Monday, we are continuing our Clone Wars rewatch series. So make sure you stick around for those. But with that having been said, thanks for listening to episode 931 of Podcast Stardust, everyone. Have a great rest of your week. And until next time, may the Force be with you.